Hi guys, we are now going to look at our final poem for our study of protest literature, and that is the poem by Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. So here is Maya Angelou, and I want to start this presentation by showing you one of my favourite quotes of all time, and it does happen to be by Maya Angelou. And I want you to keep these words in mind as we study this poem and as you yourself become more confident in your own writing ability. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is so true of Maya Angelou's writing. And her poem that we're going to be looking at today is really packed full of feelings. And I want you to consider how she does that. What is she doing that makes her writing so powerful? Maya Angelou was quite a remarkable woman. She was an author, a poet, a historian, songwriter, playwright, dancer, stage and screen producer, director, performer, singer, and civil rights activist. What a CV! So as you can see, writing was a huge part of her life. And her poem, Still I Rise, is a powerful, empowering poem all about the struggle to overcome prejudice and injustice. It is one of Maya Angelou's most popular poems. All right, let's now take a closer look at the poem. We're going to read through the poem, or if you would prefer, you can listen to the poet herself recite her poem, which is there. The link is there on our class page in the unit folder. She does a much better job than I do, so if you would like to listen to her, go right ahead. Make sure you have a copy of the poem. Have a paper or electronic copy, you can download that. Make sure you try really hard to listen to how the poem is read and how people, I guess, recite the poem. Because remember, poems are meant to be listened to. We're meant to hear them, and so that's really important. You need to also make sure that you annotate the poem as you, each time you read through it and each time you listen to it. You will annotate and you will find more things and things will stand out to you at different points. So just keep track of your progress, of your thoughts, and remember your annotations aren't anything amazing. They don't have to be really, insightful and don't have to look really clever and smart. Your annotations are your thoughts that you're recording on the poem. That's all they are. So it might be helpful if you had some paper, pens, highlighters, anything that you need, or a laptop to take notes. Okay. In particular, as you read and listen to the poem for the first time, I want you to try to take note of the various metaphors that are powerfully created in this poem. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders fallen down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise. Now will be a great opportunity for you to write down your first impressions. What do you think of the poem? What stood out to you? What did you find striking? What did you find funny? What did you find confusing? What are some words that you felt were really powerful? How does this poem communicate its protest? You might want to write some ideas down. When read by those who understand the meaning of repeated wrongdoing, the poem becomes a kind of anthem, a beacon of hope for the oppressed and the downtrodden. It's a reminder of the abuse of power by those who sit in government, the judiciary, in the military and in the police force. For members of the public, for society, it sends out the clear, repeated message of hope. No matter the circumstances, there must always be hope to cling on to. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of the poem, we've had some, discussion about the ideas being explored, I would like you to do 3 or 4 initial activities where you're thinking through the poem by yourself. You're thinking about the techniques, you're thinking about the ideas, and you're documenting your own thoughts before you start being exposed to other people's. I think that's really important. So I'm going to take you through these activities of what I want you to do. So firstly, I want you to chunk it. I want you to read through the poem aloud by yourself. And next to each stanza, I want you to summarize what it is about. See if you can follow the ideas. So next to each stanza, write down what you think is the main idea. What is Angelou saying in this stanza? And it might be a word, it might be a phrase, it might be a sentence, whatever works for you. Secondly, I think it's really important that we look at the rhythm of the poem. Now, as with many African American writers, they have a very rich history in the church community, in the African American church. And when you experience what churches like that are like, you get a sense for how people's writing have very much been influenced by the preaching style and also the gospel singing. So, and part of that's also influenced by the slave history and what the slave culture was like. And so you get all these strands being brought together and heavily influencing a lot of African American writers. When you hear the preaching and it is full of sound and it's full of rhythm and it's full of this musicality in the way that they speak, and that very much influences this poem. And you can see that also this is where a lot of I guess rap music and R&B music was heavily influenced by this history of gospel music, of preaching, of the slave history. So the rhythm is really important. So I want you to think about, what did you notice about the rhythm of the poem? What devices create the rhythm? Think about the sounds. This is where you're focusing on sound devices. So when we're talking about sound devices, we are thinking about rhyme. We are thinking about meter. So we're thinking, in terms of meter, we're thinking, are there a particular number of syllables in each line? What's the pattern of syllables? And those things create the rhythm and the meter. You can also think about the rhetorical questions, and do they have an influence on the sound of the poem? You can look at any other devices like alliteration. So the sound of those beginning, the repetition. Is there any repetition of the beginning sounds of letters? Is there any assonance? Is there any sibilance? The repetition of the S sound. Is there any onomatopoeia, or are there particular words that are placed in a very powerful part of the line? When you have words put in the beginning and the end of the lines, they are more weighty parts of the line and they will have more emphasis. So that's all playing a part in the rhythm and the sound of the poem. So have a look through and see what you can find. Okay, thirdly, now I'd like you to focus and hone in on specific poetic devices. I want you to identify the following techniques. Now just do what you can. I'm not bothered if you can't find everything on this list. I just want you to have a go at developing this skill in identifying techniques on your own. Now remember, if you can't remember what some of these techniques are, there is that link on our webpage, on our class page, that will give you a list of literary devices, what they are, give you examples, and help you understand their effect, their function. So make sure you use that resource. Look for repetition, rhyme, symbolism, imagery, hyperbole, metaphor, and rhetorical question. Try to find these and label them on your poem. Don't just highlight things willy-nilly on your poem. Actually find an example of repetition, highlight or underline that, and then next to it label repetition. If you find a metaphor, highlight, underline that, and then label next to it metaphor. Okay, that is a really great way to make your annotations clear, and it also will help you remember, because you think you might remember this stuff, but in 1 or 2 weeks time you're not going to remember why you highlighted something. So it's really good to just write these things down. Write every thought that you have about the poem down, because you will not remember it. As much as we would like to think that we would, we won't. No one's that good. Okay, so it's over to you now. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. It was just designed to be a little introduction to the poem. We will have a more detailed look at this poem later on, but for now, this is our initial reading, our initial impression, and just having a chance to write down your own ideas first and do what you can first before we take a closer look. Thanks guys, I'll see you later.